Welcome to Elizabeth's Chronicles. If you love true crime, consider subscribing. Today, we are going to look at family annihilators who predate Chris Watts. It wasn't that long ago that we all watched Chris Watts stand on his front porch asking for his wife and kids to come home, knowing inside that he had murdered them. He had no emotion. He later admitted to strangling his pregnant wife, Shannan, and their two beautiful girls, Bella and Cece. But Chris Watts is not the first family annihilator. First on our list is Robert William Fisher. On April 10, 2001, at around 10 p.m., a neighbor overhears 39-year-old Navy veteran, Robert William Fisher, and his wife having a loud argument. At around 10:45 p.m., Fisher is spotted in his wife's truck, withdrawing $280 cash from an ATM, which is the most he can withdraw at a single time. At around 8:42 a.m. the next morning, a blast rings out through the neighborhood. Firefighters are called to the home of Robert William Fisher and his wife, Mary, daughter, Brittany, and son Bobby. Once firefighters were able to put out the fire, they found the bodies of Fisher's family inside. It was quickly determined they'd all been murdered. Fisher's wife was shot in the head, and her throat was viciously cut. Both children had their throats slashed. Not long after the killings, police named Fisher as the main suspect in the murders. Police believed that Fisher killed his wife and children because he thought his wife was leaving him. He didn't want to put his children through a stressful divorce. Fisher was an experienced hunter, and knew the outdoors well. He has never been found. It's suspected that he either committed suicide or has started a new life somewhere with a whole new identity. Robert William Fisher would have turned 60 years old this year. In 2015, the FBI made multiple age-progressed photos, showing how the suspected killer would look today. A $100,000 reward is still available for information leading to his arrest. Second on our list is John List. John List had the ideal life. He was by all accounts a perfect son, husband, and father. He was an established accountant at a bank in the town where he lived. He was able to provide a very comfortable life for his family. The family lived in a mansion with his mother, wife, daughter, and two sons. The home included a spacious ballroom, marble fireplaces, and a Tiffany skylight. The family lived the American dream in 1965. They went to church every Sunday, and List even taught Sunday school. From the outside looking in, everything was picture perfect. However, in 1971, John List lost his cushiony job. At the time he was 46 years old. He attempted numerous times to land another job, but his attempts failed. He could not stand the thought of telling his family that he lost his job. After losing his job, he would spend his days at the train station, during his usual work hours, reading the newspaper until time to go home. He was secretly taking money out of his mother's bank account to pay the mortgage payments. List refused to go on welfare. He did not want the embarrassment in the community. He also felt this violated his self-sufficient lifestyle that his father taught him from a young child. On November 9, 1971, John List methodically shot every member of his family, one by one. His wife was first. He sent the children off to school, and then shot her in the kitchen as she sipped her morning coffee. List then went upstairs, and shot his mother while she still slept in bed. He killed Patricia as she returned home from school, then the youngest son, Frederick. List then made himself a sandwich and sat down and ate it. He then closed out his bank accounts. He later went to his son John's soccer game and cheered him on. He drove him home and then shot him in the chest. John List placed the bodies of his family over sleeping bags in the ballroom, then wrote a note to his pastor. List thought if anyone understood what he just had to do, it would be him. List feared that his family would turn from God once faced with the evil world and poverty. He felt this was the only way to ensure their arrival to heaven. John List did not commit suicide though. He attempted to throw the police off, by cleaning the crime scene thoroughly, and using scissors to meticulously cut himself out of every picture in the home. He called the school to let the children's teachers know that the family was going out of town on vacation, and would be gone for a few weeks. He also called, and cancelled all deliveries to the home. He switched all lights on, and had a radio playing in every room with religious hymns. He then went to bed and slept while his family lay dead. He then walked out of the front door the next morning. He was not seen again for another 18 years. A full month went by before neighbors became suspicious of the lights being on all the time, and nobody coming or going. They began to suspect something was terribly wrong. When authorities entered the house, on December 7, 1971, they heard organ music echoing through the intercom system in the home. They also found a 5-page letter from John List explaining how the decomposing bodies on the ballroom floor were his family, and killed out of mercy. He described how he had saved the souls of the people he loved. The FBI found his car at Kennedy International Airport in New York City, but they never located him. 18 years later, in 1989, prosecutors in New Jersey came up with a strategy. They used an expert forensic artist, Frank Bender, to create a physical bust of John List, using age progression. Bender gave him a hawk nose, larger eyebrows and horn-rimmed glasses. Psychologists imagined that List would be wearing the same glasses he wore when younger to reminisce of his more successful days. The depiction of John List was remarkable. When America's Most Wanted aired the story of the John List murders, 22 million people saw the sculpture. Tips poured in. One came from a woman, in Richmond, Virginia, who said the sculpture looked just like her next-door neighbor, John Clark. She stated he was also an accountant and attended church. Police visited the Clark home, and spoke to his wife. She told them how she met him at a church gathering. Everything unraveled for List from that day. List changed his identity 18 years ago, and had moved to Colorado, under the name Robert Clark. And then moved to Richmond, Virginia. Police arrested John List on June 1, 1989. List was convicted, and sentenced to 5 life sentences. In an interview later on, List states that he wanted to kill himself too, but he knew if he committed suicide, that he would not get to heaven, to be with his family. List died in 2008 at age 82. Next on our list is Stephen Sueppel. Stephen Sueppel was born on August 13, 1965, to parents William and Patricia Tierney Sueppel. He graduated from Regina High School. Then graduated from the University of Northern Iowa. Stephen married Cheryl Kesterson on June 13, 1990, at St. Mary's Catholic Church. The family also attended church there. The couple later adopted 4 South Korean children, Ethan, age 10, Seth, age 9, Mira, age 5, and Eleanor, age 3. The family lived in Iowa City, Iowa. Stephen was vice president and controller at Hills Bank and Trust Company in Hills, Iowa. In February of 2008, Stephen Sueppel was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of embezzlement and money laundering. $559,000 was stolen from his former employer, the Hills Bank and Trust Company of Hills, in Iowa. Sueppel had entered a plea of not guilty, but had admitted to investigators that he had diverted the funds to a personal account. He was granted bond, and his trial was scheduled for April 2008. On March 29, the family attended Easter Mass as usual. Later that evening, around 8 p.m., a family friend stops by and visits with Stephen. At 11:30 p.m. that same night, Stephen leaves a message for his father and brother, at their law firm. In the message he indicates that his family is in heaven. On the same night, according to a letter Stephen wrote, he puts his 4 children into the family van, which was parked in the garage, and tries to kill the kids, and himself, by carbon monoxide poisoning. This attempt fails. So Stephen brings the children back into the home, and bludgeons them to death with a baseball bat. The 3 older children were found in their bedrooms. Eleanor, the youngest, was located downstairs, in the toy room. Stephen leaves several messages throughout the night, at different times, as he attempts to commit suicide, each time failing. On Monday at 6:31 a.m., Stephen calls 911, he directs them to go to the home of Stephen and Cheryl Sueppel. He tells them to go there immediately. The call then disconnects. Just a few moments later, at 6:36 a.m. Stephen Sueppel commits suicide by crashing his car into a concrete pillar. He was driving over 80 miles an hour. When police arrived at his home, they found Sueppel's wife Cheryl, and their 4 children, dead of multiple blunt force trauma injuries to their upper bodies and heads. Authorities recovered the murder weapons, 2 baseball bats, at the scene. On March 29, 2008, St. Mary's Church in Iowa City held a Catholic funeral mass for all 6 members of the Sueppel family. The church's decision to give Stephen Sueppel, a multiple murderer, a Catholic funeral caused controversy among Catholics. Next on our list is John Sharpe. John Sharpe was born on February 28, 1967. He grew up in Mornington. Sharpe met his wife, Anna Kemp, at the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, where they both worked. They got married in October of 1994. They lived together in numerous locations around the Mornington Peninsula area, south of Melbourne. Sharpe was self-employed as a conveyancer. Their daughter, Gracie, was born in August of 2002. She was born with a medical condition called hip dysplasia, an abnormality in her hips, which required orthopedic treatment, by wearing a harness for the first 3 months of her life. She cried a lot, and had difficulty sleeping. This placed some strain on the marriage. Even after the harness was no longer required, Gracie still had issues with feeding and sleeping. Anna had to have therapy due to the issues with Gracie. In 2003, Sharpe purchased a high-powered spear gun, along with a second spear, from a sports store, known as Fort Phillip Marine, in Mornington. He had not previously shown any interest in spear fishing. He practiced in their backyard until he could operate the spear gun effectively. Soon after, in September 2003, the Sharpes purchased the house at 116 Prince Street, Mornington. In November of that year, when their daughter, Gracie, was around 15 months old, Anna became pregnant again. Sharpe later told investigators that this pregnancy came as a surprise to him. Sharpe decided that he did not want another child, he felt that one was enough of a burden, and he began to resent his wife and the unborn child. On March 21, 2004, the Sharpe family attended a nephew's birthday party. Family members reported nothing out of the ordinary. On March 23, Sharpe and his wife argued before going to bed at around 10 p.m. At some point, he got out of the bed, and retrieved the spear gun from the garage. He returned to the bedroom, aimed and fired the spear from a distance of a few centimeters into his pregnant wife's left temple. He noticed she was still breathing, so Sharpe fired a second spear into her head, killing her. He covered the body in towels, then went downstairs and slept on a fold-out sofa bed. The next morning, Sharpe attempted to retrieve the spears from his wife's head but could not. He took Gracie to childcare and picked her up. He also kept a TV repairman from entering the home to keep the body hidden. Later in the day, he buried his wife in the backyard. Sharpe went back to the sports store, with his daughter with him, and purchased another spear. On March 27, 2004, he put his daughter to bed, then drank several glasses of whiskey mixed with coke to numb his senses. He then loaded his spear gun with the spear and fired it into the head of his sleeping daughter, penetrating her skull. Gracie did not die. She began screaming loudly. Sharpe then located the 2 spear shafts that he removed from his wife's skull before burying her. With his daughter still screaming, he fires both spears into her head. Gracie still did not die. He then pulled one spear out of his daughter's head and fired it again into her head, killing her. He left Gracie dead in the bed and went to bed. The next morning, he returned to Gracie's bedroom and pulled the spears from her head while holding a towel over her face, saying he could not bear to look upon her. He then wrapped her body in garbage bags and wrapped her in black duct tape. He disposed of her body at the Mornington Refuse Transfer Station, along with the spear gun, spears, her clothes and some toys. On March 29, 2004, Sharpe visited a local hardware store in Frankston where he bought a roll of duct tape, 2 tarpaulins and an electric chainsaw. The next day, he unearthed the body of his wife, and cut her body into 3 pieces. He then wrapped each part in a tarp. He then dumped her body parts and the chainsaw in waste bins at the Mornington transfer station. That evening, he sent an email to Anna's family in New Zealand, pretending to be his wife, to create the impression that Anna was still alive. However, his email had the opposite effect. He raised concerns from her family, and Anna's mother reported her disappearance to police in Dunedin, New Zealand. When questioned, Sharpe told authorities that Anna had taken their daughter and moved to nearby Chelsea, a suburb of Melbourne. He denied any involvement in her disappearance. He sent flowers from his wife to his mother on her birthday in an attempt to throw off the investigation. In May of 2004, Sharpe gives several media interviews, and appeared on national TV, speaking of his wife and daughter's disappearance. He said, "Anna, our marriage may be over, but I still love you, and you are the mother of our beautiful daughter Gracie, whom we both adore more than anyone else." He said he spoke to his wife just a week earlier, and asked for anyone with information to come forward. He claimed that she ran off with another man. On May 20, 2004, New Zealand authorities requested Victoria Police to investigate the disappearance of Anna Kemp and her daughter, Gracie. Mornington Police went to the home of Sharpe and spoke with him. He was then interviewed again on June 10. He maintained that Anna left on March 23 and he didn't know her whereabouts. On June 22, 2004, police arrested John Sharpe. During his interview, he continued to deny knowing anything about his wife's disappearance, but in a subsequent interview he confesses. He said he killed his wife because she was controlling and moody, and the marriage was unhappy. He told authorities, "I was thinking of taking care of Gracie by myself, and just amongst all this madness, that's when I lost the plot." Family members state Sharpe may have actually killed his wife because she uncovered that he had been abusing their daughter, Gracie. Family reveal several letters where Sharpe had a history of sexual abuse among children in the family. Police began a massive search that lasted weeks. The bodies of both Anna and Gracie were located at the Mornington landfill site. Sharpe pleaded guilty at the Supreme Court of Victoria. On August 5, 2005, Sharpe was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum period of 33 years where he could not be paroled. Sharpe currently resides in protective custody due to threats from fellow inmates. With family annihilators, it appears the majority of these men were harboring deep, dark secrets that led to them destroying their entire families. For Chris Watts, it was an affair. For John List, he lost his cushiony job and couldn't bring himself to face his family with the truth. He felt annihilating them was a better option. For Stephen Sueppel, his theft of company money and pending prison sentence drove him over the edge. For John Sharpe, he held a secret resentment for his unborn child and wife. Maybe a lesson could be learned from these horrific tragedies. Keeping secrets from those you love may not be the best option. That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.